Okay, so this is an introductory lesson, more or less, for algebra dealing with proportions. Now, this is just teaching proportions. After this, we're going to look how to apply proportions with different types of problems, specifically a lot of geometry. But, again, just to review, we did this in a previous lesson when we were doing percentages. We talked about proportions a little bit. But all proportion is two fractions that are set equal. So when this asks whether or not they form a proportion, then the two have to be equal. Now, in other words, there are a couple ways you can do this. You can do 3 over 2 equals 12 over 8. So one way to do this is do the cross multiplication. So if I do 3 times 8, that has to equal 2 times 12. 3 times 8 is 24. 2 times 12 is 24. So yes, those equal. So that's one way to do it, and that's probably the easiest way to do it when you don't have a calculator. However, there is another way with the calculator. Typically, I don't teach you calculator stuff without being in class, but in this case, I'm going to. So another way you can do it is just reduce the fractions. Now, one way to reduce it is just take a fraction that's not been reduced, like 12 over 8, and say, okay, what'll go into both? Well, 4 will go into both. 12 is 4 times 3. 8 is 4 times 2. And 4's cancel, and we end up with 3 over 2, which is the same as our first fraction. So they're equal. Another way you can do it is just type in 12 over 8 as a fraction using the alpha y equals key and press enter, and it'll give you 3 over 2. Another way you can do it is do 12 divide by 8 on the calculator, then do the math frac button, and it'll also reduce it, and it'll give you 3 over 2. So you can use the calculator to reduce the fractions and then see if they give you the same thing. Now, that worked on that one because 3 over 2 is reduced. Sometimes both fractions have not been reduced. So like this one, 6 over 9. 3 will go into 6 2 times. 3 will go into 9 3 times. So the 3's cancel, and that reduces to 2/3. Okay, what about 30 over 45? 3 goes into 30 10 times. 3 goes into 45 15 times. The 3's cancel, and that leaves 10 over 15. But 10 over 15 will reduce. 5 will go into 10 2 times. 5 will go into 15 3 times. The 5's cancel, and we're left with 2/3, and those are equal. Now again, you could have cross multiplied if you wanted to. Okay, what about when you have decimals? Okay, well, when you have decimals, the good thing about this is the location of the decimals. I try to just get rid of the decimals. In other words, I need to move it one place to the right. So I'm going to move this one place, that one place, that one place. Well, that gets rid of all the decimals now. So it becomes 44 over 68. That one becomes 22 over 34. So I'm going to do an aside over here. Say, for instance, I'd had a fraction that had a decimal like 4.15 over 6.2. Well, this one I only have to move 1, but this one I have to move 2 places. So since I have to move that one 2 to get rid of the decimal, I would have to move this one a second one, which would have made it 620, and then I would reduce. So it's always based on how many decimal places you have to move to get rid of them. But in this case, since all of them were just one decimal place, that makes it a little easier. Now I'm going to simplify or reduce. So I'm going to take 44 over 68 and maybe 4. So 4 times 11. 4 goes into 68 17 times. The 4's cancel. That leaves 11 over 17. I know that won't reduce because 11 and 17 are prime. Now I'm going to do 22 over 34. So 2 times 11, 2 times 17 is 34. The 2's cancel. I get 11 over 17. So yes, that is also a proportion. So in this particular case, all the first 3 were proportional. If they don't simplify to the same fraction, then they're not. Or if they don't cross multiply and give you the same value, then they're not. So a couple of different ways to do that one. Now, what about if you're actually solving? Well, here we actually are going to have to do cross multiplication. So we do 2 times b is 2b. 12 times 13. So obviously you're going to have to be able to multiply. You're going to have a calculator here to help you some. So if I do 12 times 13, that's 130, and 26 would be 156. Divide by 2. So then we get B is, I think that's 78. Okay, let's do number 5. Cross multiply. 8 times 2 is 16. 5x times 10 would be 50x. Divide by 50. Now, when you get to this point, one thing you have to do is redirections. This says round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, now that's important because you want to make sure that you put it in the format it wants. So typically we would do reduced fractions. So if you reduce this, you would get, let's see, 8, sorry, school bell, 8 over 25. But as a decimal, that's going to give you, I think, 32 hundredths. So, all right, so let's do this last one here. Again, just cross multiplying. Going to grab my calculator here for this one since it is decimals. So I'm going to cross multiply and get 6.7 m equals, now we'll type this in, 4 times 4.7, so 4 times 4.7 is 18.8, divide by 6.7, so 18.8 divided by 6.7 gives me 2.8059. Okay, so to the nearest hundredth, that 5 is going to make that round up, so that's 2.81. So a real quick lesson on just solving basic proportions.